Good morning, my dear family, brothers and sisters. It's good to be here with you this morning. I wonder if you ever come here on a Sunday wondering what it is that you're going to be hearing from the platform here. Do you ever look at the calendar and think, oh good, today it's brother so-and-so, I like listening to him, he's always interesting or challenging or persuasive or motivational? Perhaps sometimes we look and we think, oh, it's brother such and such, with the little sign in our hearts. What do we want to hear each Sunday? What is it that we come here for? What do we want to listen to? And if you happen to be the person standing here this morning, as I am today, what thoughts run through your mind as you prepare? Leader and I talk about the words which I present, and it's the words of both of us that you hear when you hear me presenting this morning. What is it that we want to convey? What's the message which we believe, after prayerful consideration, is going to be the thing that our family here is most going to benefit from? Is it best to discomfort people so that they're needled a little bit by what is said? In the coming days, it's this thorn pressing in their side which leads them to the straight and narrow way, if you like. Or perhaps you think the best encouragement is through an appeal to the higher love of God and what he and his son Jesus have done for us, as we see represented for us this morning. But what if you come to put pen to paper and you realise that you just don't cut it? After all, people want to hear from somebody that they can look up to, don't they? When you want to be listening to somebody who is passionate and likeable, with strong, powerful words and excellent delivery, it's what gets people to things, isn't it? It's what gets people to do things, to change, to become better people. And isn't that what our faith is about, being transformed? You know, and if we look around, we see there is an entire industry based on transformation. We have motivational speakers and TED Talks and organisational psychologists and change management programs and so on. And we look to leaders for change within our business lives, within our personal lives, in society at large, through our politicians. As a society, we look for those who can drive change for the better. And the people who do it are smart, intelligent, personable, likeable, persuasive. And they pick their words like an artist to paint a picture of a world the way that we want to be, and then they paint us into the scene so that we can feel that we're part of it in some way as well. And in some ways, isn't that what we look for on a Sunday morning? Encouragement, motivation, direction, on how we too can be part of the beautiful picture which God has painted for us and promised that we can be a part of. Just close your eyes for a minute. And I want to read Isaiah 35 for you, just to illustrate what has been presented for us, what's been promised for us. I just want to think about this in contrast to the world in which we live, but this is what's been promised. So just close your eyes and see the picture as it's painted. The wilderness and the wasteland shall be glad for them, and the desert shall rejoice and blossom as the rose. It shall blossom abundantly and rejoice, even with joy and singing. And the glory of Lebanon shall be given to it, the excellence of Carmel and Sharon. And they shall see the glory of the Lord, the excellency of our God. Strengthen the weak hands. Make firm the feeble knees. Say to those who are fearful-hearted, be strong, do not fear. Behold, your God will come with vengeance, with the recompense of God. He will come and save you. And then the eyes of the blind shall be opened, and the ears of the deaf shall be unstopped, and the lame shall leap like a deer, and the tongue of the dumb shall sing. Waters shall burst forth in the wilderness and streams in the desert. The parched ground shall become a pool, and the thirsty land springs of water. In the habitation of jackals, where each lay, there shall be grass with reeds and rushes. A highway shall be there and a road, and it shall be called the highway of holiness. The unclean shall not pass over it, it shall be for others. Whoever walks the road, although a fool, shall not go astray. No lion shall be there, nor shall any ravenous beast go upon it. It shall not be found there, but the redeemed shall walk there. And the ransomed of the Lord shall return and come to Zion with singing, with everlasting joy on their heads. They shall obtain joy and gladness, and sorrow and sighing shall flee away. Who doesn't want to be part of that? Who doesn't want to be in that picture that has been painted for us? You know, look at the things that we see in this world. Never mind your smartphones or your NBN and your superannuation or holiday houses, leased cars, healthcare, air conditioning, job security, education, light and easy meal plans, personal trainers maybe, dinner with friends, retirement living, private education, recycling, housing market savings accounts, all of these things which just flow in and out of our lives. They're just noise, and none of it really matters, because everything that we want is there for us in Isaiah. Fertile land, beautiful, equality, security, good health, peace, safety, happiness. And so, my dear brothers and sisters, I'm here this morning trying to find the words which will help us all get there. But I'm not the person that you want. Because the person that you want to lift you up beyond the problems of today and to set you down in your mind at the very feet of God, the person we look for is someone we believe must be inherently good. Because if they weren't, how could they possibly give us words of comfort and exhortation? Because the person that we want standing here has, as it were, heard the words of God themselves, the words from the very lips of God almost, as it were, which are then being passed on to us. And that's not me. I'm not good. I'm not in communion with God and his Son, and right now with the way that our lives has been this year and what my family has dealt with, I'm not sure that we see eye to eye on a lot of things. And there are days when I see my faith hanging by a thread. Am I really the person that you want to be hearing from this morning? Because I am a sinner. I'm not worthy to be called a child of God. This morning, as Sam mentioned, around the world there are countries who are spending a minute in silence to honour and respect those who gave their lives. It's the 100th anniversary of Armistice Day, when the guns on the Western Front in World War I fell silent. About 330,000 Australians served, over 60,000 died, amongst countless millions who either died or were maimed. And those who died gave their life so that, well, amongst other things, so that we could meet here this morning in freedom. It's a blessing of God which we benefit from. In some respects, I'd consider those men to be better than me, for the sacrifice which they gave to help secure the peace in which we can all live and find a relationship with God. No, this morning I don't find myself particularly worthy. If you're looking for a role model to say this is how you can live a better life in Christ, you'd be disappointed in me. So where does that leave me? Where does that leave any of us, really? I mean, if we're honest with ourselves, we all fall short of the glory of God. That's how Paul puts it in his letters to the Romans, isn't it? In Romans 3. I want to read a few verses there, and I want to read this from the Message. And the reason that I'm reading from the Message is because I know it's a paraphrase, but it's the ideas which are being brought here. I don't want to do any great in-depth study. It's the message which I'm trying to capture. And so it's recorded like this. In our time, something new has been added. When what Moses and the prophets witnessed to all these years has happened, the God setting things right that we read about has become Jesus setting things right for us. And not only for us, but for everyone who believes in him. For there's no difference between us and them in this, since we've compiled this long and sorry record of sinners, both us and them, and proved that we are utterly incapable of living the glorious lives God wills for us. God did it for us. Out of sheer generosity, he put us in right standing with himself. A pure gift. He got us out of the mess we're in and restored us to where he always wanted us to be. And he did it by the means of Jesus Christ. We fall short, but God has covered the shortfall. Perhaps we could look at a list of those that we would like to hear from, who would no doubt enthrall us and encourage us. And as Daniel beautifully read for us this morning, Hebrews 11 lists for us people of outstanding faith, and that would be a pretty special list to be on, wouldn't it? A hall of fame of faithful men and women. And so who do we have there? We have people like Abel and Enoch and Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, people who, if they were standing here instead of me, we would be in absolute awe of. Could you imagine Abraham standing here, for example? Or Isaac? You know, what words would we hear from them? How much impact would they have on our lives over the coming week? The thing is that no matter how great we think of them as being, they all had the same nature as us. Abraham was a man of faith. But when he was placed in a situation he felt could be life-threatening, he abandoned his faith to lying to Abimelech and telling him that Sarah was his sister instead of his wife, a situation which almost led Abimelech to sinning. And God ended up intervening, and it says that he stopped Abimelech from sinning. God had to intervene in that situation. We could think of Isaac, one of the fathers of the nation of Israel, trying to place his own will above God's. Even though he was told that Esau would serve Jacob, he still wanted to try and manipulate things so that he could bless Esau over Jacob. And Jacob obviously deceived Isaac into giving him the blessing rather than having faith that God would work things out for him. Joseph kills the Egyptian in anger. Moses strikes the rock instead of speaking to it. Perhaps he was aiming for some dramatic effect. Perhaps he felt he had to physically break the rock to release the water. Either way, barred from leading the Israelites into the promised land. Rahab, who saved the spies but is always referred to as being a prostitute. Gideon, who tried to avoid responsibility that God placed on him. And he asked for several signs before finally agreeing to lead the attack on the Midianites. You know, David, man after God's own heart, adulterer and murderer. These are the people that if we stood and looked at them as they stood here, we would see as wonderful examples to us, and yet even though we would be in awe of them and we'd hang off every word, we would revere them in the same way that this world, if you like, reveres its own idols. But they were just men and women like you and me. And so this morning, my dear family, as I openly confess to you that I don't feel worthy to lead you in words of encouragement and exhortation, but I'm humbled in the knowledge that none of us are truly worthy in the way we'd like to think the brothers who stand here each Sunday should be. After all, as Paul said, we have all fallen short of the grace of God. And so does this leave us in a place where we should accept our mutual unworthiness, as it were? Well, of course it doesn't. A few weeks ago, Leader and I watched a Christian movie about a cross-country running team, an event which I have discovered is actually a team sport. And there were many lessons which were drawn out of it for us, and it talked about the race not being about being the fastest, but about being consistent, and it about being there to support each other. It's a race with twists and turns. It takes you uphill and down dale. It's a race, as we will sing this morning, which we run with endurance. There is no single winner. We are all winners in this race that we run in life. It's how we help each other along the way which ultimately sees us as being victors. And so when we're struggling, as I have, as Leader has, as David and Abraham and Sarah and Jacob and all of those who've gone before us has, as each one of us sitting here has struggled, what do we do? Do we look at someone we might think of as a role model that we can aspire to be like? Or do we recognise the failings that we all have and help each other towards the finishing line? I know that I'm not a worthy man, but God sees worth in me. I know that I'm not worthy of your help, and yet you've still helped me. And that's how we demonstrate our faith, isn't it? We were reading in Hebrews 11, and it talked about those great men and women of faith and the things which they had performed, the wars which they had done, the fact that they had been put to death for their faith, the people who had received their children raised back to life. These things, we don't have that experience in our lives. How do we demonstrate our faith? We demonstrate our faith by helping each other, by reflecting the love of God which is shone on us to each other around us. And so we could each write our own chapter of Hebrews 11, couldn't we? We could list those who are outstanding men and women of faith and look to examples from the Bible, or perhaps we could look at the examples from our own lives. I don't want to embarrass anybody here, but I might start with the compassion of John Eakins. As a 15-year-old, I was taken in by John, and he guided me along the path to baptism. And he was generous with his time to me. Many years later, there were encouraging words which Maureen then gave to Leader when Leader was coming to terms with the arrival of Eliana 8 years after the last one. And Maureen shared her experience of waiting for Ali to arrive and how she'd managed that time in her life. And taking things full circle there, we then have Ali and Craig, who have given us clothes, hand-me-downs and for our children, and made meals for us when we were in need. Actions which touched our hearts and reminded us of the love and care that we have for each other. Think of David and Lynn, who have loved us and our family as though we were their own. The generosity of their time and wisdom is an ongoing exhortation for us. And just last week they were there spending a day with us, providing enough food to keep us fed for a week and helping install a kitchen window. Daniel here has reached out to us personally many times, making sure that we're involved with our family and the events which happen in our meeting here. Sally and Andy, busy with their kids and bagpipes and dancing, but who have been there for us late night calls when we've had 6 children, a house to drop in on when there was a bushfire evacuation, just been there as friends with an infectious laugh. Taylor and Emma, looking after their younger siblings so that we could get away for a weekend. Sorry. Judy and Brenton, kind and compassionate to us all, always there to listen, to provide advice. Lindsay, who grants us with smiles and warmth, makes us feel welcome no matter how long it is since we've been here. Nathan Morehouse, who makes copious quantities of coffee at ecclesial camps and in so many places, is a social glue that holds many of us together. Those couples who have put aside or delayed what could have been an easier time in their lives and instead have chosen to open their homes to children who needed safety and security and the protection of loving parents. My mum, who makes us a meal each week to help ease our load, constantly visiting us with cakes and little packets of cucumbers, which are snack size, which the girls love, and Leader's mum, who helps us get the girls to and from school, and so many things which are little but add up to so much. Sue Oldfield, Auntie Sue and Rachel, who came up this year and saw Matty in a school musical. Last year it was Peter and Leonie Dangerfield coming to see us, and Dassie in her musical. And just a few months ago, when I was languishing in hospital with kidney stones and feeling very sorry for myself, Peter rang to have a chat to see how I was. And I don't know, Peter, if you realise how much that call meant to me, and Leader as well. Touched our hearts, reminded us of our family here, and how God reaches out to us through each of you. That's our little personalised version of Hebrews 11. Short on time, so there are so many more. Where does that leave us then this morning? Well, first of all, I'd like to think that we could all write our own list of those who have constantly reminded us whether or not we think we are worthy. We are never at such a distance from God that his love cannot reach us. Secondly, I'd like to conclude in the same way that the writer to the Hebrews did. All of these people had faith, and they acted accordingly. Though they were faithful, they were not perfect, yet God loved them as he loves each of us too. And no matter how worthy or unworthy we might consider ourselves to be, we live by faith. We haven't received yet the things which have been promised to us, that blissful picture of peace and tranquility which Isaiah paints for us. Instead, we see it from afar. God is not ashamed to be called our God. He's planned something better for us so that we, together with other faithful men and women of years gone by, will all together at that time be made perfect. That is our future, as long as we continue to walk together, helping one another, and acknowledging that however imperfect and unworthy we may consider ourselves to be, our future is assured through the love of God as it works to one another through each of us.